Hello, Yifan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah,
can hear you.
yeah. Apologize, I couldn't put up my screensavers properly, so bear with me. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Great pleasure. So let me share my screen here. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, here we are. Okay, looks okay, right? So blockchain and the future of open finance, pretty heavy topic and pretty late in the evening. So let's have some fun here. Ifan, are you ready to give the poll to the audience?
Yes.
Okay, let's have that small exercise warm up. Okay, so if you're only allowed to make one-time investment in either gold and Bitcoin, and you have 3 seconds to make that decision, what would you invest? Imagine you're gonna do that as interplanetary investment in the future use for Mars. Okay, 5 seconds counting from now. 3, 2, 1. Cool. 40-60. Okay, that's a very interesting result because I've been doing this poll ever since 2017, and seeing this combination changes over time. As of last year, I think 2020 during the pandemic, the latest MIT, the alarm conversations we had, the poll was quite opposite to what we're seeing here. It's more of a Bitcoin 60 and gold 40, but that shows still we are very divided on the opinion. Bear this in mind, right? I'm not saying this is good or bad, but keep your decision to yourself and see that in 5 years and tell yourself whether that's a good decision as with anything else. Okay, now let's go to so this is where Bitcoin has come to the market ever since 2009, but you see it's huge amount of volatility ever since even last year. And in contrast, gold, this is the gold index from the last 100 years have been fluctuating more or less stable compared to the cryptocurrencies, right? In the range of 600 and to 2000, particularly in the last 20 years. So what does that mean? Life is made of a lot of choices. Just as investment and career. So I just want to share what I've been seeing in this space and a little bit about myself first. I was born and raised in a city known for its hometown as Panda and spicy food. I was, statistician by training and did a lot of quant tradings, was large shops you can, recognize. And from New York to Hong Kong, Singapore, and China. And until I pivoted into more from fin to the purely technology-driven practices, the blockchain startups and ID 2020, which is a UN initiative in blockchain, and the CamLab at Harvard University. So very quickly, I'm watching my time. What does that mean, financial innovation? Finance is not known for being innovative at all, right? But the name of DeFi did caught a lot of attentions. And what the hell is blockchain to do with that? Why we need something like blockchain or cryptocurrency at all? to this world. And the more important is to look forward and what will be the impact, hopefully, on us, on a future career and a future society. So let's very quickly warm up. What is really the DeFi? It's a short for decentralized finance, and sometimes it's being used interchangeably with open finance or distributed finance and DeFi. It's not one specific thing. It's a collection of a group of loose ideas and projects, mostly based on the blockchains. So if you call, most people know about Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is a new digital and decentralized alternative tool to transact in the store value, you can see the entire DeFi space is new digital and decentralized alternative financial systems in general. It's different from mainstreams because it's not on banks or intermediaries, computer servers. It's on everyone else's computer. So very quickly, what's a DeFi versus Wall Street? What's the differences between their visions? Because I've been on both sides of the play on the very frontier. In the past, the amount or limit the service you can get from financial intermediaries or markets depends on who you are, your social status, your country of origin, right? Literally that limits either your individual or your corporate, the amount of services, and it's a permission-based. And DeFi is, on the other hand, completely trying to democratize the entire process. You do not need anyone's permission to access the deposit, lending, FX exchange. So it's just like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You can download a node, you can get on, you can get off. You do not lose a thing. It's open source. Of course, not only all the codes are open source, but also the transactions very transparent, which cause some problem as privacy was later mentioned. But the beauty of it is really it's a modularization. It's a modularized combination of what we see the financial primitives in a very different way, relying on everybody's infrastructure. So give you maybe a rough idea. This may sound a little bit too abstract. This is from the consensus CodeFi's research work. If you look at the summer night, you look at the star, right? All the stars are loosely connected, relating with each other. There's no fortress of islands that's separating one group of transactions from another. You are looking at all these names, right? This is purple different colors stands for the different applications. Augur, Banker, like Kyber, just very short names stand representing for the functions we see in the mainstream. They do lending, they do borrowing, do swaps, they do all these things. And all these dots are computers or nodes or individual users. So you can join this star network and you can leave. And this is just show you how the DeFi network on the web space works so far, right? You are doing everything in a very distributed way. So what does it mean? Well, Wall Street reaction, of course, is very, complicated. Jamie Dimon was calling Bitcoin a fraud, a scam in 2017. And in 2018, he was saying sorry. And very quickly, he was saying, okay, welcome to JPM coin. We are doing our own coin thing as well. And as we know, like Visa becomes recently the major payment network to use USDC, which is stable coin. And PayPal allows us to use Bitcoin for 100 millions of customers. NASDAQ was doing the first kind of pilots along with many, many other custodian companies like Fidelity. So that goes back to really what we're going to look at the future financial system. What is money, right? The building blocks of the financial system. And we are not strange to the whole array of things, right? From stone and shell and metal coins, gold and and a bill and credit card, and now what? The tree of money. This is a excerpt from the IMF recent research, actually it's from last year, 2 years ago, about the emerging space of trees. It's very interesting to show actually the currency and the software are emerging, right? On the left-hand side, you have claim-based, which is account-based. On the right-hand side, it's object, which is token-based system. There are many of some things we're very familiar, right? Circled here is debit card, checks on the wire, and here we have Alipay, WeChat Pay. But now potentially with the technology, we have a wide array of B-money, E-money, I-money, and the central bank's currency here. And particularly on the very far right hand is cryptocurrency. I'll just show you a space we're potentially looking at for our future, for the financial system, even as the building blocks of basic money. And the central banks, right, they are not idle on the emerging presence of a variety of cryptocurrencies. And according to IMF, again, 80% of them have done kind of the CBDC projects, and more than half of them have moved beyond the conceptual framework into the pilot, including we know China's DCEP is already in the pilot practices in many cities. If you're interested, we don't have time for this. You can find a lot of literatures on the BIS, Bank of International Settlement, on how CBDC is adapting to the central bank's Bitcoin version for the future. But why is doing this, right? So the fundamental question is why we need all this stuff, right? Do we need some other crypto digital assets to invest in? Not really, right? We already have plenty of assets in this world. We have more than $100 trillion of fixed income, more than 78 trillion worth of equities. We do not need to make up some new computer-based codes to investing. So what does this mean? It's really back to the principles of the finance. What's finance supposed to do? It's allocating resources and networking infrastructure, right? So it's still network, as we see the night stars of network, is more resilient than a hierarchical tower of a banking system. We'll show you that with examples, but look at it here now. So far, the blockchain have probed into the finance space mostly in the 3 areas: payment, including the stablecoin and CBDC, and the cryptocurrencies, including many synthesized products, and the digital assets, which represents totally different group of things than what we've seen before. They are barrier nodes. They represent direct ownership and peer-to-peer. So what does that mean, the barrier node, right? So in the world, we think most of the stuff you think you own, actually you don't own, right? Think of the stocks. You think you own 5 Apple stocks. Is it really true? No. You rely on the statements from your brokers, from your custodians to show your monthly statement saying, okay, here's the transaction, and here's the record of the transaction. So when you are selling that, you rely on this proof to say, I once owned 5 shares of Apple, then I'm able to sell that. That's why there is like a delayed settlement process. You can transact in seconds, in nanoseconds, but you need T+2, T+1 for all these intermediaries to cross-checking their account to say, okay, you do own what you claim you own, so you can sell. We do have the cash in your bank account, so you can buy. And the Bitcoin is different, right? They're representing like cash. When you issue cash, $5 to buy a cup of coffee, nobody asks you how much bank account money you have. Nobody see, as long as it's a real cash, right? Nobody bothered to check your bank account. What they see is what they own and what you present. It's like a Bitcoin. You don't need anybody's statements, account checking to show you have this amount of money. And Bitcoin, although it carries the name of coin, actually it's peer-to-peer cash payment system. It's a cash in the digital space. And what it really works, right? In the past, we have you and me need to transact. We need to rely on the banks to do the transfer or the security brokers to do the reconciliation. And now potentially we can transact directly. This can be counterintuitive, but look from the past, right? That is how we do barter trades in a global digital way. Think forward. Okay. Okay, this has been a long journey. We have intermediaries. And since 70s, even back then, when you invest in stocks, you have stocks. But now we have layers of custodians and in Omni account to do the partial claims, but in blockchain world, potentially you can go back to the history again in a very different way though with the technology. You own what you claim to own. You do not need anyone else to prove you. Like imagine that Night Scar decentralized applications. So that removes what? Like a lot of risk. We have been trying to use intermediaries to mitigate counterparty operation issuance. So what does that mean for our finance going forward? Shall we do more finance or tech, even for our own career, right? So this is research from the Robert Merton Nobel laureates, and in the past, financial institutions systems is anchored with institutions, either called intermediaries or financial markets. And ironically, all these successful products are migrating from banks to the markets because with better liquidity and less customization. And here we conduit money from savings from government, households, and private companies as financial systems into the real economy. But with technology, there's a spiral of evolution that will decrease importance of intermediation, and primarily with the technology intensify the competition. And anchor for the future will be more on the functions rather than institutions, which is really what we call the first principles of what finance means: clearing, risk, pooling, allocating, and incentivizing. Very quickly, I think I'm running out of time. Instead of public equity, think of a private equity or any sort of quasi, hibernated sort of transaction, second car trading, your many private deals want to have a transaction. You have a buyer and a seller. You think it will be like this. This is how currently it works in Wall Street, right? There's a level of really over intermediation and lack of transparency. And with a future tech-enabled model, that is the project actually we're currently working on, is to have this star night landscape that rationalize the amount of intermediation and cost and transaction service. So now in the future, as a very quick summary, we discuss about direct versus indirect ownership and clearing settlement was delayed, or RTGS, and the net and gross. And basically that is moving from current liability driven. It's like when you put money in the bank account, it's a bank's liability, right? When you buy Apple shares, it's a broker's liability against you. You don't owe anything. And in the future, we're moving directly into asset-based financial system. Of course, just like any innovation, there are many risks and challenges. We don't have time to go that now, but feel free to contact me if you're interested in continue to explore in a space. Okay, back to you, Yishan.
Okay, I think there's like one very interesting question, and a real big running out of time. So there's only time for only one question. The anonymous feature of the blockchain technology attract not only experts, but also criminal personals. What do you think of this issue?
It's a very intriguing question, right? So, everything has its dark and the bright side. Now, put this way, in the smuggling business, they don't trust anybody except loads of cash, right? But they trust Bitcoin. That shows the level of security. Put this way, the minimum level of intervention from the outside party, but that does cause problem for the regulation, as we show in the last slides, right? The AML, KYC, and if you do that properly, there is a balance to manage that regulatory requirement in a compliant way, together with privacy-preserving features like zero knowledge proof or multi-party signatures. So it's like more than a Tao, right? The evil and the God. There's always a step lock process to go forward. Hopefully that answers to your question.
Okay, thank you so much for contributing your ideas. There's one last question. How do you think about highly fluctuating Bitcoin price? Would that be a huge problem for Bitcoin's development?
Yeah. So also because of that volatility, right? And that volatility shows dispersion of ideas on the intrinsic value as of anything else, right? So just as we see the gold and the Bitcoin, we see 40-60 split, and people have different ideas. And I think that path will continue until probably in the foreseeable future, like for once, probably 20 years for Bitcoin to stabilize. Until that point, very unfortunately, Bitcoin cannot be used as a payment medium, probably more like a store of value or more like a digital gold. Yeah.
Thank you.